Go. All right, so
maybe one day I'll upgrade. I'll be cool like you guys. Have my own mic and stuff. I'll do
I
my
think you're already miles ahead of us in the coolness department,
Oh
but
yeah,
that's just
well.
you know. All right, so we are up on the YouTubes, as Corey calls them right now, and I'm copying the link so I can go back and share it to some Facebook places. Good morning, friends. Nobody's in just yet. It usually takes a minute or two for the bat signal to get out there.
And I'll see that on YouTube. Right, all the viewers, it's all through YouTube.
Yep.
That's cool. Like, so how do you have to like stream it kind of through both? That's kind of neat.
Yeah, we used to do our show direct to Facebook, and we decided to try and build a YouTube presence. We're working on that. There are days when I want to give up on that and go right back to Facebook because we had a lot more daily viewers that way.
Well, I don't know. County is like 5 years behind on social media, so they're all still stuck on Facebook. Everybody else is on like Twitter and Instagram, and you know what I'm saying? It's just all Facebook here for some reason.
Yeah, it's because we're old. Because we're old.
I guess.
Yeah, that's the reason.
It's the boomers.
Okay, boomers. So let's see.
It's the boomers.
Sharing to my
They're
personal
the ones
page.
That won't give up Facebook.
Live now.
No, you Gen Xers like your Facebook too.
I'm a last year boomer. I'm 1964.
Oh, okay.
So I'm actually sorry.
We'll call you a Gen Xer.
sorry we fucked everything up. Yeah. But on behalf of my elders in the boomer age, I apologize.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? Some of those boomers were walking for civil rights.
You know what? In 2018,
can't hate them all.
I worked a campaign job for Our Future, which was a big PAC, and there were women that were organizing with that organization who had walked for Bobby Kennedy in his presidential run in 1968.
Cool.
Yeah, African American women from Jacksonville, from Duval County, and it was like I was humbled. These are women that when they were very young were walking for Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Hashtag Coffee on the So Local Live Network and on the Coffee channel on the YouTubes. I am Greg Smithwick, and that's Corey Cottrell. And the young lady joining us today is Caitlin Erickson, who I've just met in the last week or so. And Caitlin has distinguished herself as a local badass who organized some anti-racist and anti-police brutality protests, very much in the mold of Black Lives Matter. It's important that we say that these protests are not an official Black Lives Matter protest set. That's only because they're kind of busy, and it's been hard, I think, to get them to reach out when they're busy doing the things they're doing. And so Caitlin took on the mantle of trying to organize getting some folks together very successfully in Newport Richey and over the last week or so. And we wanted to have her on because we like to honor local people that are doing good things. And she's doing a very good thing. So we're pretty excited to have you on today. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
You are awesome. We knew that already, but how are you feeling about how things are going?
I mean, no matter what the media says, I feel really confident in the way it's going. I mean, there's action in like 50 states right now. Every single state. This is bigger than the civil rights movement. Like we're already bigger than that, and it's a weekend. So I'm very confident. I'm very confident, especially with the news from the politicians in Minneapolis too, and what their promises are for Minneapolis PD.
Oh, they already voted.
Yeah.
They have voted to sort of disband the Minneapolis Police Department as currently constructed and build it from the ground up again.
So needless to say, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, that may be the biggest thing that's happened yet. And I have a feeling it's going to have a cascade effect to other cities and other communities that do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the power dynamic that we're starting to see now, right? Is that you have these police, and a lot of times they're actually trying to reform, and the police unions are putting blocks up, and all the politicians are trying to get it done.
Right.
And now they kind of have this sort of Damocles over their head. Oh, no. If you guys would like to still be here in the morning, you have to ante up. Otherwise, we'll just kick you all out and start from scratch. I think it's about time they have that power so that they can actually start changing some things on their own.
Absolutely. What makes them above the law? What makes them above law?
Right.
Yep. So far there have been three protests that you've organized. The two that started at the library in downtown Newport Richey, and then this event yesterday at the corner of State Road 54 and US 19, which was I don't know, it looked to me like 60 or 70 people out there.
It
And
was, yeah, it was pretty big. It was the biggest one yet, for sure.
and an overwhelming positive response from people in
Oh,
traffic.
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
not too many one finger wavers, although there were
It's
some.
surprising. You really brace yourself for the worst, and then you're there and you're like, wow, okay, I did not expect it to be this calm and this much of a positive reaction in this area. For a lot of the blue line stickers that I see on the trucks here,
Yeah.
I was very surprised. So pleasantly surprised. But
So
it just shows the community is aching for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the community obviously has been looking for this for a while.
right. And what it needed was for really for one person
Exactly.
or one small group of people to start.
Mhm.
So why did you start doing this now?
Because somebody had to. Just somebody had to do it. And nobody had done it yet. It wasn't done yet. And I didn't see anybody working to make it happen. And so I just put on my organizer shoes and I made it happen.
I love that.
Somebody had to do it. So
And like one of the things that I wanted to talk about with you is all of us who have done any organizing on any community issue, and my pet issue is homelessness and poverty in our community. That's the thing that I stepped out on the first time. And the like maybe the most important thing I learned early is that there were already people doing that work, but they were just not visible. Right.
sure.
So
Absolutely.
it was tempting to try and do everything at once without realizing that there were some people out there like, hey,
Right.
we're already working on that. But what wasn't
Sure.
happening is they weren't coalescing around a
Mhm.
central effort to change policy. Like there's lots of people who are parachuting food into the woods for homeless people, but nobody is addressing the question of why do we have to do that? Why aren't
Right.
these people in homes? You know,
Right.
why is our social safety net system not
Absolutely.
catching these people
Yeah.
before they fall that far?
Mhm.
And that's been maybe the hardest lesson for me, was that what I needed to do is sort of be humble and hold a space for those people who were already doing the work to speak about what they thought would solve the underlying issue. And have you experienced that yet?
I mean, there's definitely people who they've had their own, like even you, I met you and you obviously had your own activism that you were doing. So definitely met people who are like-minded. And I have run into a few people, but it's just there's not been any like set organization to
Right.
it. Like, I really want like a Black Lives Matter chapter to like start here and actually have that organization here in Pasco. So we
Right.
don't have to reach out to Tampa Bay Black Lives Matter and say, hey, Pasco needs love too. Like, is there any way that, we can try and organize something there? Like, we'll just already be here.
Right. So
So that's,
I mean, I was on the Black Lives Matter website yesterday, and I noticed that they don't list any Florida chapters on the national website. Do you know if that's on purpose? Like what they don't want is local chapters to get heated up by being on the national website? Or, I mean, I have no idea how you would even go about starting a chapter.
it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible that they're trying to be like kind of laying low right now. I mean, if you look back at Ferguson protests, there's activists from Ferguson that have died and gone missing, and several, and people don't know what happened to them. I mean, that's happened, to Black activists since before the civil rights movement, where they would go missing and die. And just in the area and the demographic that we're in, it's not surprising at all that they would feel the need to kind of lay low to protect themselves.
Right.
So I think just because it's not put out there, and it doesn't mean that there's not people out there obviously who feel the same way, because I mean, there's definitely like a Black Lives Matter Tampa, like, that is a thing. So
Right.
it's
Right.
just, I really think it's just about laying low.
Well, I'm feeling like my role in this should be, what I kind of came to this the other night, this idea that I'm going to follow Black leadership on what works and what helps. And
Mhm.
I'm going to follow. And when they ask me to stand out in front, I'm going to do that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's I'm feeling some kind of way about it. Like somebody handed me a bullhorn yesterday and I was like, oh
Sure.
shit. Not because I'm shy, ask anybody,
No,
but because
yeah.
I felt like it, here's
Not your place.
oh great, a middle-aged white guy. That's
Sure.
what we need more of, is more of
Sure.
that,
Sure.
So I'm waiting for guidance, and I have a feeling there's a lot of people in our community that are doing the same thing. They're
Mhm.
waiting for guidance on what's helpful.
And that's true too. And that's true too. A lot of people, like you said, you know, it is like it's necessary. You want to follow Black leadership. You want to have Black voices. We're here to amplify their voices, not to
Right.
be drowning them out. So I absolutely understand that. But I think it just comes down to, you know, having to pick up the slack. I mean, especially in like an area where we are in, where it's only 6% Black people here.
Right.
Their voices are going to get tired really quick. You know, you gotta help amplify and keep it going strong, because, you know, that's a big fight. That's a
Yeah.
big fight. Imagine only 6% of the people where you live look like you. Only 6%. And then the other 86%, because there's 86% of white people, and there's obviously still Native, Pacific Islander, Asian as well.
Right,
So, but
right.
there's about 86% of white people. And imagine the majority, they have stickers on their bumper that says like, I don't agree with you and your life doesn't matter. And that's what you see everywhere. Like, imagine that.
Right. Yeah, and our sheriff, deservedly or not, has a whole ton of support from the broader community. I don't think it's deserved. I think the sheriff has.
Oh, not at
Has he
all.
made a statement? Has he made a statement about any of this? No.
I haven't heard him. Yeah, no.
Right.
Is
Have
it
any of our
still
elected
Sheriff
officials?
Nako, right?
Yeah.
Is that who you're talking about?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Have any of
Yeah.
our local officials made a statement that's supports the Black Lives Matter movement?
Definitely nothing supportive.
Nope.
Definitely nothing supportive at all.
Whatever
Whatever happened to that lawsuit?
Which lawsuit?
The one against Nako.
Oh, there are several. There are.
It's the more recent one. It was like in 2019. It was
Right.
like the officers.
Yeah, there are several. There are, I think, at least six. At least
Yeah,
six
well, I
former
think that's what I'm
personnel.
talking about. There was like 6 or 7 officers that were going against him, and they were trying to
Right.
kind
That
of.
they had been punished for speaking out on social justice issues and race issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes. Like this is the weird thing is what our sheriff's office does a really good job of is polishing their public image.
Sure.
Right. They're really good at appearing to be consistent and believable on these issues. But, when our friend Denise Johnson organized the Day of Remembrance for transgender people who had died, the sheriff came and spoke directly to the group, and he said, we can identify with this because we get discriminated against. And I was like, and so
cops are not marginalized groups.
I know.
I'm gonna just say that right now for anybody who's listening. Cops are not marginalized groups.
Thank you.
They are not marginalized.
Yeah.
They are not.
Well, Denise handed me the microphone right after him, and I'm like, when he saw her hand me the microphone, he was like, I could see it, like, oh shit. And what I said was, hey, you get to take that uniform off at night.
Exactly.
You get to have your days off without walking around in your uniform. So no, that's the choice you're making. That's a very different thing.
Exactly.
But he doesn't like to hear from me anyway, because consistently, we know, like the sheriff's office kind of prescribes to the idea that we're going to solve homelessness by arresting our way out of the problem.
Oh yeah.
And
and that's all over. That's how they are. It's ridiculous.
That's why to me, like maybe somebody I'm not new to the Black Lives Matter idea, but sort of paying really close attention now.
Sure.
I'm this all checks out with my experience with trying to deal with law enforcement on any issue like this. Is the first thing, we're behind you 100%, and yet we're raiding homeless camps and making people's lives worse with nowhere to put them. And they're resistant to the idea that there's a different way.
Or they'll like destroy the food, like with food not bombs and stuff. Absolutely. It's disgusting, some of the things they do. I mean, even look back, vagrancy used to be something that you could go to jail for. And they've been writing, like, especially the Black community too, for a very long time, since before the turn of the century. That's been a huge problem. So they've always tried to punish homelessness as if it was something to be punished. How do you punish somebody for being disenfranchised? Like, you're supposed to reach out and help them. How is arresting them and putting them in jail or fining them somebody who's already doesn't have money, and you're just pushing them further and further behind? And it goes right back into, even talking about, strong communities make police obsolete. So if you strengthen the communities and, you do something and help the people who are houseless, and you put them into homes, give them the help that they need, then you're not going to have to spend all this money on the cops trying to arrest them in the first place.
See
And
why I
it's just
like
this
her, Corey?
never-ending cycle.
Yep.
So
This is
it,
a-
it ties back so many times to like just the way with police, like it's just so unnecessary to how they act. It's
Yeah. So the term that I want to tell our viewers and listeners that and please share this back to your social media page. This is a pretty important show for us. We're feeling kind of lucky that Caitlin, with not really knowing us at all, agreed to come on here. This could have been a total ambush, but I think she figured out that we're not those guys.
hey, I was even if it was an ambush, like I'll come with some facts.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we should have
Oh.
tried to ambush her because we would have lost. I'm fairly
Yeah.
certain.
I would have loved that. That'd
I'm
be great.
entirely okay with that, I think.
Yeah, I want to talk about a term that we're going to hear more and more of, and it's going to be an uncomfortable term. Like, you know, I remember having the conversation with myself and seeing other conversations when Black Lives Matter was a new idea that, oh, you know, that it's almost begging you to say, but all lives matter. It's almost begging you, and that's not accidental. That was not a mistake, and people were trying to frame it as a bad name for an organization at first. But the reality is, when I say Black Lives Matter, I'm not saying that Black Lives Matter more. I'm
Right.
not saying that white lives don't matter. I'm
Right.
saying, you know, that it says what it says. And now we have to contend and have those uncomfortable conversations. So the new term that I'm hearing that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable is the term defund the police, right?
Yeah.
That's that thing that I saw signs yesterday
Yeah.
for that. I'm seeing that movement kind of take hold, and the immediate backlash is, well, who are you going to call
Yep.
when somebody's breaking into your house? No, you're still going to call the police. But what we're not going to call the police for is somebody who is homeless and who has had too much to drink. What we're not going to call
Right.
the police for is tiny little property crimes, right? That defund the police doesn't mean that funding just vaporizes. It means it gets reallocated to community service,
Communities, yeah.
strengthening communities, and you know, in education, in social services, in medicine, in medical care for people who are poor but not poor enough to be on Medicaid, or there are gaps in what they can get done because Medicaid doesn't cover it. For instance, not all dental problems or vision problems are covered under Medicaid.
Mhm.
That's me how I know, right? So I want us to talk a little bit about, you know, reallocation of police resources doesn't mean that we're less safe.
Right. No,
And
exactly. Because as you said, defunding, and you're gonna reallocate those dollars basically to the community. You're gonna give them to, you know, the houseless. You're gonna give them to, you know, just anybody who's disenfranchised, anybody who needs help. And so you're gonna help build them up, and then that's gonna get rid of a lot of things like domestic violence. It's gonna get rid of a lot of things like vagrancy crimes. It's gonna get rid of, you know, it's gonna get rid of a lot of theft. It's gonna get rid of a lot of gang violence, because people aren't going to be so desperate to succeed. You know, they're not going to be so desperate to survive just to make it another day. Because
Right.
once again, you know, strong communities, it makes police obsolete. So that's what they mean when they say to defund and downsize. And then when you downsize, obviously you're not going to need as many cops around if your communities are stronger. You see what
Right.
I'm saying? So,
And even within their funding, like I
but
you
a
know,
lot of people also will even say that defunding isn't even going far enough, and a lot of people need to follow Minneapolis's example with how they abolished and completely dissolved and are rebuilding it, because a lot of these systems are too broken to fix. So to defund would be great, but to abolish and dissolve completely is, I think, a lot more necessary, especially in like areas that are very known to have toxic police forces, which is all of them. So
all right, shots fired.
just to add that little tidbit on that one.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Even within their own funding,
Mhm.
right? I know Pasco County has at least 2 armored vehicles, you know,
Yeah.
like a militarized presence.
Yeah.
I see police wearing, you know, basically
Block ears.
military style uniforms instead of
Yeah.
police uniforms.
What the hell?
What if we just redistributed that funding to, I don't know, testing backlog rape kits? Right?
Absolutely.
Even within their own funding, we should have some
Absolutely.
oversight into how they spend their budget. And
Or
our
why
and our
not
local
address
county
it on
commission has not held
nurses?
them in any way accountable
Yeah.
for those things.
Yeah.
Guess why? Because he's a powerful political force. He is an elected sheriff, and our entire county commission is you know, of the same party. There's no reasonable voice of opposition when he if he asks for money and they say no, they're suddenly soft on crime.
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And being hard on crime has not served our communities. And the other thing, like, if Black Lives Matter as a movement, as an organization, is successful in reducing police brutality and police abuse of citizens, guess who benefits?
Tell me. Lay it on me.
Everyone.
Everybody.
Exactly.
In the same way, I do domestic violence counseling. I counsel perpetrators. These are men who are in trouble
Sure.
for abusing their intimate partners, be they wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands. Because we do see some gay men in that context, and they've arrested for DV charges in Florida. You are required to take a 6-month course, and I'm a person that offers that course. When I help these men stop committing violent acts against their wives, girlfriend, or their intimate partners, you know who benefits from that? Their kids, their families, their communities, their police officers who no longer have to go there to break up domestic squabbles on a Saturday night and sort out who hit who, right? So everybody's lives get made better when men let go of the toxic part of their masculinity. Not just women's lives, but the men themselves have sort of a rebirth and a new opportunity to frame masculinity in a way that isn't harmful to those around them. So this is why so much of this is focusing on Black Lives Matter is going to make everybody's lives better. That's why I'm super comfortable with it now.
Absolutely. Because police brutality, it does affect a lot of people. It affects the Black community the most. They're killed at a rate 4 times the rate of white people by cops. 4 times the rate. And they make up 17% of the country's population. Yep. Makes no sense. But to say, like you said, I mean, even in the homeless community, like how many of them are harassed by police constantly? A lot. So many people. And even the working class, like the police aren't there for the working class. They don't care about the working class people. They do not care. They do not. They are not here to help us at all. So to me, I think, it's really about the people, and and that's why, especially me as a white person, why I feel so not even just to watch the violence on TV, but just to know that how bad it really is as a working class person.
Right. Watching people take one arrest and then they can't get an apartment, and they can't, they lose their job and can't get another job because we put so much weight on somebody's past police history. Look what's happened with George Floyd. Just look specifically what's happened with this case in Minneapolis. Now there's an argument, he had past run-ins with police and he served time in prison, so therefore he decided he deserved the death penalty. And
it's madness.
And there are legitimate
and they didn't even know
feel like that.
Yeah. They didn't even know. They said potential drugs. Go fuck yourself. So we for the Moving Forward podcast, we actually covered Biden versus Trump's policing policy strategies. And of course, Trump is stick finger up ass lie for 4 years, right? That's his old strategy.
Right.
Biden's is actually, his healthcare plan, really fucking good. And they actually address go read it. Because honestly, it touches every single thing that we've talked about. It's really long and it's really good. And it almost all of it is about redirecting funding away from this militaristic policing and towards prevention and basically community spending as opposed to police spending. I was surprised. It was shockingly good.
That is really surprising. I can't say I've read it.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is what I'm finding with everybody who's sleeping on Biden now. Which, for the record, he was at the bottom of my list in the primary.
We're not excited.
Everyone sleeping on Biden has not gone to his page and read his policy proposals because they're fucking fantastic. And in a lot of ways, they're amalgams of what the rest of the Democratic field was doing, because he's actually trying to build a team and a coalition, which in the Democratic Party you kind of have to do, or you're not going to have a choice. But they're doing it. I highly recommend going to read it, because honestly, we might as well get excited about it because the other side's a fucking fascist. But it's actually not a horrible platform. So it's getting more and more exciting for me to back this, because it's addressing everything we're talking about right now.
Yeah,
well, I'll definitely have to check it out, because my big thing, I just, with the tough on crime bill, that it leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And, he was actually picked as Obama's VP because of the fact that he was more conservative. That's why they picked him, because they were too afraid that Obama was too progressive and they needed Biden to ground him.
Kind of
I'm
anchor.
not
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure that that's true, because if you actually look at who was fighting for the public option, it was Biden the entire time. And this was in 2008 when that's what I personally was fighting for, and we
Sure.
didn't get it, right? So, and again, like they wanted somebody who could speak to the sort of white working class and the Midwestern kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like go read his healthcare plan and go read the stuff on justice and policing,
For sure.
because when
I
people
mean,
say
healthcare, I can like rant for hours about healthcare. So that's like
yeah,
a whole
us
other
too.
like,
We do all the time, and
Yeah.
it's important. But yeah, like somebody told me like Biden's the most progressive presidential candidate we've ever actually run, and I'm like, come on! But reading it,
It's
yes,
true.
it's
I mean,
100%
that's
true.
not, you'd have to keep in mind, like we actually back in like the turn of the century, we did have people who were running for president that were socialists. Like that was not a bad word then.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
not a bad word at all. So to say that he's the most progressive, I don't know. You'd have to really go back in time.
Oh, no,
'cause
no,
there
no.
were a lot of very progressive.
As one
To
of the
clarify.
party heads.
Yeah,
Sure.
to clarify,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
the nominee, of the
Sure.
Democratic Party,
Sure.
and also if he is elected, he will be the most progressive president, certainly since Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
And I think maybe even more, to be honest.
Yeah,
But again,
we'll
we could have
see.
a big fight about that if we wanted to. But
And
that's
that's just-
the thing. Like
yeah.
that's where we're at right now. And so I just want to make sure people are getting on board.
And that's just with
I wonder
his-
how he feels about reparations.
Good question. But the other thing about a president like Biden is that that we're just talking about his platform. The House and the Senate, right, are going to send him legislation that if you have to ask yourself, if the House and the Senate passed a reparations bill for African Americans, would Biden sign it? Would Trump sign it? I think we can pretty much agree that the person most likely to sign it would be a Democratic president. There's no way that Trump is ever going to sign a reparations bill if
Sure.
he's reelected, right? So,
Yeah.
so in that kind of, it doesn't, all the good ideas don't have to come from the White House, right? A lot of times the best ideas come from the House and the Senate, and the president has the choice of vetoing or signing off on them. And I think he probably would sign a reparations bill. I'll tell you that there was a really great article in The Atlantic last month about Joe Biden's modification in this moment. And this is before the Black Lives Matter moment. This was during the COVID moment where he was having a revelation about he needed to be much more progressive and wanted to be much more progressive. So he started reaching out to people with these better
True.
ideas, trying to bring them in. So even the platform that you're seeing on the website, he's modified more to the left since that was put up than it was even 6 or 8 weeks ago. And I think that, even though Joe Biden is not my first choice, I think Elizabeth Warren would have been my first choice, but she's certainly who I voted for in the primaries. I think he's a person that is going to be able to hear input from others and modify what he knows he needs to do as president based on what he hears. And he and I'm sure he's listening right now. I mean, he's been in his study doing his little podcast from home for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. The first time he ventured out to talk to the public was to go to a Black Lives Matter rally and talk to folks who were out there on the street. And I respect that. I respect that a lot. Yeah. Anyway, I ran out of gas there in that thought.
It's okay. I mean, I definitely think, with definitely more recently, he's felt the need to try and pull in like the younger vote by pulling in more of like progressive ideas. So that
Right.
doesn't surprise me that they're starting like to get more progressive as the time passes towards election time, just because that's something a lot of people have been very vocal about, like we're not gonna just vote for you just to vote for you. Like you got to earn it still.
Well, we have an example that's in the comments right now. Our friend Brandy Goyette, who is running for county commission here in Pasco County against Jack Mariano, when she ran against Mike Wells for county commission 4 years ago, is it that long ago already? It coincided with Mike Wells reaching out to me personally to try and be more concerned about our homeless problem, right?
Sure.
And I'm absolutely convinced now that the only reason he did that, the only reason he reached out to me to talk about medical cannabis and about homelessness was because he knew he had a serious challenger that was far more progressive than he was. And he was going to be in trouble if he didn't
Absolutely.
modify but he didn't actually modify. It was all talk. It was
Bait and
all
switch.
talk. Right.
Yeah,
And
bait and switch.
so the key here is we have, I know that a lot of people that are involved especially younger people are not so excited about voting, or not so excited about two-party system politics. And I fucking get that. I've talked to thousands of voters in the last 4 years. Literally maybe more than 10,000 voters in the last 4 years. And young people are just not excited about this. What I find myself saying to them is, okay, but if we elect people to our local board of county commissioners, our local city council, our state legislature that are far more progressive than what's there now, that's incremental change. And we need that. We need that, those little steps. Do I want big steps and overwhelming support? I absolutely do. But the people that are making the laws that govern how our sheriff acts, right? Those are state and local races, and that's where we need to focus. So we have
And I will say that I do agree. I will say that I find local elections to be the most important because they actually do directly impact your community. If you can actually see more results from that. But at the same time, incremental change, it's good to start working in the right direction. But there's sometimes you just have to be careful because the little baby steps, it's really easy to push you right back down a peg.
Absolutely.
And that's why, it needs to be followed with direct action. And that is what is absolutely necessary.
Yes.
Civil disobedience, that was MLK, Martin Luther King's big thing, civil disobedience,
And he warned us about baby steps. He warned us about half measures and too soon and too fast. Yeah.
And and being on the fence, being a fence walker, not being able to pick sides, things like that. He absolutely did. He absolutely thought about a lot of things. So
speaking of fence walkers,
those warnings, but what'd you say? I'm sorry.
And then speaking of fence walkers, in the presidential race, there's two sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of them is Biden, and the other one is if you vote for them.
Are you telling me I have to pick a side right now?
Yep.
You don't have to make me promise this on camera or something?
Right now, unless you're saying that there is a 1% plausibility that Trump is not 1 million times worse than Biden, right? I mean, that's the game. That's where we're at.
I mean,
one
this is like a whole.
This are good people, and the other one's Biden. So
this is like a whole other conversation in itself too. But I mean, I could go. I mean, it goes back to a lot of us, especially us millennials. We're really tired of having to pick between lesser of two evils.
Right.
we want somebody who really cares about the damn people and actually means it and isn't just, okay, well now all of a sudden I'm going to adopt more progressive policies just because now look at all these young people who are pissed. Right. And now I have to get them to vote for me. But I'm not actually doing it. It's just, we're tired of all the empty promises. How long have we been marching for civil rights?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in politics. I've been paying close attention to politics for a decade and a half. So I believe I get that, right? But people disengaging from this, fence sitting by saying pox on both your houses, got us a white nationalist, Nazi supporting fascist. That happened because
staying home.
People stayed home.
Well,
right?
people stayed home because they weren't happy with their candidates. So.
Honestly,
we get that,
I don't care. Yeah, because we have a Nazi in the White House right now because people were upset at their choices, right? So, and this is honestly, I believe, is exactly what MLK was talking about. You're either picking sides or you're literally part of the problem. And I
don't think he was talking about election.
And we want what's better, right? And honestly, there's solutions to the two-party problem that, you want back candidates that are for ranked choice voting, for example, right? There's ways to start solving this problem, but sitting it out so that we have somebody who would literally become a fascist dictator if we let him is not how to do it. And that's what happened, right? And if we sit this out now, or if we say, okay, well, Biden's not perfect, so I'm not going to vote for him, or I'm not going to even volunteer for him, right?
And I know vote at all.
Right, that's exactly it, right? And I know some people will call this vote shaming. Fucking call it whatever the fuck you want. I will own that, right? I will absolutely shame people for this vote because they are fucking up if they don't get this right. They really are. There's two choices for president, right? And one of them is a fucking white nationalist, Nazi supporting asshole. And the other one's Biden, who was, again, on the bottom of my primary list. But if you go to his policy page, he's actually putting out there for the whole world to see, these are the actual things that I'm for and that I'm going to be held accountable for if I don't actually accomplish. And he's not going to accomplish them all. Of course he's not, right? But to me, it is obviously, because here I am ranting like a crazy person, it's infuriating that this is even a discussion that we have to have. because
just
it's
don't
so
think-
obvious.
I just don't think that you should be able to. I just don't think we should guilt people into feeling bad because they feel, and rightly so, that their voice isn't heard. And I mean, how much? And sure, but like, how much do you think like voter fraud? As Donald Trump keeps talking about voter fraud, like you don't think that that's something that had
It's
anything
not.
to do with how he
No.
got elected? You really think?
Statistically insignificant.
And
They did a massive study on voter fraud to find out exactly what was going on. And again, like we track this really, really carefully, right? Because like the voting machines are scary because you can actually change them or whatever. There's a lot of different things. But the only thing that we as voters can control is how we pull the lever for it, right? And we can try and control for mail-in voting and for everything else that we can do as far as the voter fraud thing is concerned. But just a pure statistic, people who voted for Jill Stein, who probably agree with me on like 95% of policy outcomes, outnumbered the difference between a win and loss in all the swing states. It's their fault that Trump is in the White House, period. Now, it's also Trump's
It's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's because no, it's not.
They made a choice that shot themselves in the foot.
Corey,
if
let her
Hillary
speak.
Clinton would have had more
speak.
progressive policies and a better history with voting for the people, maybe people would have showed up. People weren't passionate about her, and you can't shame people for that. You can't be mad. Not everybody wants to pick the lesser of two evils. Look at history. Look at what's been going on forever.
But that had a result. That had a result.
The Democratic presidents, this has been going on. We had a black president who was putting people in putting blacking people up. ICE. That happened under Obama. He started that.
Yeah, well, and again,
I understand the sentiment. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, I just feel like you can't shame people and make them feel bad about something that it's really not their fault. It's not. If we had better candidates who had better ideas and listen to the people, if the majority of the people don't want to vote for you and show out, there's a problem. There's a reason why the majority of the people aren't coming. There's a reason. You got to appeal to the voters.
I absolutely agree with that. And in the primaries is where you do that, right? Because in the primaries, I'm actively, aggressively working to get candidates elected that will be that, right? To be that voice that are actually going to do those good things. Once the primary is over and all the voting is done in the Democratic primary, you have two options, right? So what gets me frustrated is that, like, honestly, that is just true because the net result of a Jill Stein vote is Donald Trump. That happened. We know that that's the real thing. And those people on policy very likely agree with me 90% of the time. So to me, not calling out that mathematical error is impossible. I can't not do that, right? I watched them make Donald Trump president, and they should know better. And because you happen to feel a certain way, and again, like the time to put pressure on the party to get better candidates, which I agree, we absolutely have to do.
Well, that's what's wrong with the two-party.
That's
the issue with the two-party system in the first place, is not everybody feels like there's such a broad scale of what it means to be on the left. There's such a broad scale of what it means to be on the right. When you say Democrat, that doesn't appeal to everybody. A lot of millennials don't feel like they're a Democrat, So for a lot of us to vote one way or the other, it's not about for us, it's not two parties. To us, that's a boomer thing. Two parties.
Well, here's the thing.
What do you mean two parties? A lot of us don't call ourselves Democrats, don't call ourselves, a lot of people don't even call themselves Republicans anymore. There's just, so it's, I think that's really the big issue too with the two-party system, is it silences a lot of people. It silences a lot of progressives, a lot of people who don't feel like their ideas are entirely captured by Democratic candidates.
So what do you do?
To me, that almost feels like we need to get a third party at least on the ballot, if anything.
I want to call a timeout.
Okay.
Because we're beating somebody up, and I don't want us to do that.
I can take it.
Also, Brandy wants to join us.
Okay.
And she's going to tell us the same thing. All right,
she's going to agree with me, or she's going to agree with you?
Well, I don't know. You never know. And I have a feeling she's going to tell us to shut up and let the lady talk.
Okay.
Brandy is a candidate for county commission here locally. She is also a firebrand activist and social worker. She was the head of the West Coast AIDS Coalition, which helped get medical aid and comfort to people who were suffering from AIDS before they were defunded by our state legislature. So again, that's why these races are important. And I just sent her the link, so we'll see if she's going to hop in and join us here. So Donna, my roommate Laugh Track, we call her Laugh Track. Her name is Donna. Just told me that Brandy wanted in. Here she comes. So I don't know who's going to get an ass whooping here, but somebody is.
I can take it. It's okay. I can take it.
Me too.
It's
All
all
right.
fun, right?
Just told me that Brandy wanted in. Here she comes.
Oh,
So I don't know who's gonna get an ass whooping here, but somebody is.
Hey,
Brandy.
you got to turn off the volume on your side.
Oh, my side's all fun, right?
Yep.
Brandy wanted in.
I can see you.
We're here in the YouTube.
Yeah, we're hearing the YouTube feed.
Look at your computer.
Is that better?
Let's try it again.
Better?
Yeah, your audio is really, really poor.
All right. I have to eventually one of these days buy
Yeah.
So, all right. So when we talk about voting, by the way, this is my garage, my laundry room, which is where I was. So, by the way, Caitlin, very proud of you for stepping up and doing everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Doing an amazing job.
Thank
And
you.
I'm very, very proud to see strong people out there getting active and saying enough is enough and they're tired of the bullshit.
Thanks.
So, thank you. Now, Greg and Corey, stop shaming people for not voting and being energized about a candidate. Look, okay? Not everybody is me. Okay? Not everybody has the it factor. I'm not gonna lie, there are sometimes when I hear certain candidates speak, I'm like, oh God, who wrote this for you? Like, this is horrible.
Right.
But I still vote. So,
Yep.
Caitlin, I still vote. So this
Good for
is
you, and that's good. Good for you. I'm not saying nobody should.
So this is how I was raised. So I was raised by a single dad. Okay, Union UAW in Michigan.
Me too. My dad's at UAW too. Rockford, Illinois. Chrysler.
Well, Pontiac. So Pontiac, Michigan. So Michigan.
Awesome. Solidarity.
This is one of the things because my dad used to have to go on strike. He used to have to fight just to get, the benefits that a lot of workers take for granted today. Okay?
Hey, Brandy, just real quickly, just lean back from the microphone a little bit. You're over-modulating on the mic. I know it's shocking to hear, but it's true.
I've never been told I'm loud. I don't have to talk
Now
to
you're
them.
good.
Okay. So when we're talking about how we get people to vote, first step is people have to register. Because I'm out there all the time and I'm talking to the youngins and, whether you realize it or not, I'm 44, almost 45 years old. And I was raised that you vote in every election. Does not matter if that candidate makes you feel like that inside, you vote. Because, for example, and I will use a Michigan gubernatorial election. We had Jeffrey Feiger, who won the primary, and he was Kevorkian's lawyer, Jeffrey Feiger. And he ran against Governor Engler, okay? Engler was very anti-union, anti-people, and there were accusations of date rape going back to college, okay? So when we talk about not feeling excited about candidates, I was not very excited about Jeffrey Feiger. I don't know if you've ever seen him, ever met him. It's kind of, But my other option was Engler, a man that I had seen actually privatize a lot of the unions, a man that I had seen actually taking away workers' rights. We have an individual on the other side who actually wants to advocate for workers' rights, but is kind of like dry toast. Not the most exciting individual in the world, but you know what? Dry toast is better than what we fucking had. He didn't win because, once again, people weren't energized enough to vote and angry enough at all of the allegations against Engler to get out there and vote him out. So then, luckily, we had Jennifer Granholm for many years for Engler because he got termed out, she ran, and things got a little bit better. But now, if you notice, Michigan is now a right-to-work state. Every time a certain group gets their rights, we have a thing in this country called the pendulum swing. We have horrible backlash against those groups. Having Obama in for presidency was absolutely amazing because for the first time, we had a Black president in the United States of America. A Black president. Something that people, I'm sure, of my generation, my friends, my family, never thought they would ever see.
I remember. I didn't even think it happened. I remember. I was like, yeah, it was like a huge deal. Huge deal.
So now what we're seeing with the Trump backlash is that pendulum swinging back. We saw it with women's rights. We've been seeing it with LGBTQIA rights. We are constantly seeing this. We have a problem in this country where we view giving people equality and equity and making things fair for them is some insane reason they feel it takes away from their rights. And that's not right. Because when we have equality for all and we have equity for all, we can fight things like poverty. We can fight things like substance abuse. We can fight things like homelessness and solve those problems. And what we're dealing with is that backlash, that horrible, horrible backlash that we always see when one group gets their rights. Now, when we talk about candidates and the it factor, okay, I have had people tell me that I am inspirational, which I still find weird because this morning, I'm not gonna lie, Greg, I ate some fruit snacks before coming on here. That was my breakfast, so I don't really find that to be inspirational. I was like, oh, Zoe's not here, so I'm gonna eat. And when we talk about that, we talk about the it factor. And I've had other people come up to me and say, where do you get this from? Where do you channel this from? I said, it's from inside. Not every candidate has that fire. Not every candidate has that spark. But you know what? When they're out there and they're talking and they're stumping, and trust me, running for office is fucking hard. Let's be honest. It takes up 90% of your life. Whether people realize it or not, it's a full-time job. You're handling messages, you're handling phone calls, you're handling emails, you're running an entire campaign, and you're coordinating volunteers, and you're doing all of this. And your personal life is put on blast. So everything you do is scrutinized to the micro, like down to what it is that you are and who you are. These are reasons why we don't get good candidates running, because we ourselves force candidates to have to be perfect. They have to have all of these marks. They have to check every single box or I will vote for them. They check 9 out of 10, but you know what? That's not really who I want to date on Tinder. Well, you know what? This isn't Tinder. This is politics. And it's frustrating because I've had people say to me, I really like everything you say, but the only reason I won't vote for you is because you have a D next to your name. And I'm like, wow. So you really like everything I say. You like how I fight for people. You like how I want to improve the quality of life for everyone in this county. You like that I basically give a crap about the individuals that live here. But because of the fact that there is a different letter next to my name, you won't vote for me. Well, sucks to be you because I've just listened to you complain about my opponent for 30 minutes. So I guess that means he's getting in, because a no vote is a vote for that individual. Whether anybody realizes it or not voting in an election is a vote for the winner. And we have too many fucking people in this country who don't vote. And yes, I get it. It is your right to not vote. But at the same time, I've had to talk to a lot of younger generation. And you're out there as well, and they might relate to you as well, because I apparently pass as looking like I'm 30-ish. And when you talk to them, and they say politics doesn't impact their life. Politics doesn't have anything to do with my life. And I tell them, so, you don't drive on the roads? Drive on the roads. Yes. Decided by politics. So, you don't work a minimum wage job or a tipped industry job? That's decided by politics. Because tipped industry is set by politicians who have never once worked a tipped industry job in their lives. And do you think that they should be the ones qualified to make that decision for you? And when you talk to them about everything that is impacted by politics, by them giving them a pass, says to them that it's okay to keep making these decisions. And it is frustrating because nobody gets that the reason we have even managed to push the needle far enough for us to have had our first Black president was getting people to vote and getting them to vote in every election. Because if voting didn't matter, they wouldn't have fought women so hard and tortured us and raped us and killed us to prevent us from getting the right. They wouldn't continue to do voter suppression methods in the state of Georgia to prevent people from voting. They wouldn't dissolve individuals for having their voter registration on record if voting didn't matter. There wouldn't be elections decided by one vote if voting didn't matter. So it is time for us to stand up. And yes, I am very proud of the needle pushing that the protest movement has done, but we need to push it further and get these racist assholes out of office. Thank you.
That's Brandy.
I'm here for it. I love the energy. I'm here for it.
I'm just gonna let y'all, the two of you, just do the rest of the show.
Yep.
Yeah, what's next? What else can we talk about?
So
Well,
you active in this movement? Just curious. As I step over here to fold my laundry, so
What'd you say? Can you say that again?
repeat it, Brandy.
active in the movement.
I still didn't hear it.
No, we're
Active in the movement.
What made you get active in the movement?
Oh, okay. Just because, like I said before, just nobody was stepping up, and somebody had to. And I had a little bit of experience in throwing protests together, so I just kind of tried to make it happen. And as millennials in our social media, and it kind of makes a lot of things really great and easy because you can just kind of find like-minded people super easy, put them in a group, and go, hey, we're gonna go out protesting.
all right.
And just seeing like the racial demographics in the area, and just looking at a lot of the breakdowns of that, it just really showed that there's there's just the change needs to happen. It just needs to. And like even just seeing like the few people on Facebook from the area who are trying to support Black Lives Matter, and then like getting all the trolls and all the hate, it just showed that there needed to be that like unifying factor that just brought everybody together and said, hey, you're not alone. There's somewhere you can go where everybody agrees with you, and nobody's gonna sit there and question you and tell you you're wrong, and all lives matter, because it's all lives can't matter if Black lives don't matter. It doesn't. How does all lives matter if there's a whole part of all of the lives that isn't mattering? It's a logical fallacy. It doesn't make sense.
I like it.
It's really
So-
trying to
So
bring that
Brandy is
around.
being asked a very important and urgent political question. Dave Myers, I think Brandy is dodging the real important issues here. Answer the question, Ms. Goyette. Is that or is that not a troll doll on the shelf that people need to know? It's not a troll doll. Okay. Now we have an answer. That's Dave's powerful takeaway from this conversation is
I don't know. Merida.
all right. Well, I guess we're coming up on an hour here, so why don't we go ahead and think about wrapping this up? But Caitlin, I'm so proud of you for stepping up,
Yes,
and
thank you.
I will remain engaged in the current chat group,
Please
and
do.
maybe we'll
And yes, everybody get engaged.
So the chat group in question is new NU
Yes.
with an umlaut over it. New Port Richey Chat on Facebook. If you'd like to join the conversation and get involved locally and find out when things are happening, I think it's possible that a new group may emerge from that group. So you'll want to be in there so you get the word if things move
Yep.
away from that spot.
Yep.
And Caitlin is probably going to be organizing more protests in the weeks to come. Is that a thing?
Yes, there is one right now. It's Sunday, 3 to 7 on Main and 19.
At Main and 19
Main and
on
19, yes.
Sunday.
Sunday. Yep.
All right. That's good. That's a good spot. And
Yes.
like one of the issues yesterday that I thought might happen was parking, and it turned out not to be as big an issue as I had feared it would be.
Yeah.
But there at Main and 19, also plenty of places for you to park your car safely and join us. And I think if you come out, you're going to be surprised at the positive response you get from people driving by, from people who are showing up. You're going to get to meet people that are deeply involved in wanting to make things better for the African American community locally and other people of color who are marginalized. And as I say, when their lives get better, everybody's lives will get better. And that's the thing I think we all kind of want.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. So Brandy Goyette, as we mentioned, is she right there? She's getting sharp at the Zoom thing. Brandy Goyette, Democratic candidate for Pasco County Commission. She is running against noted scoundrel and doorbell licker Jack Mariano for that seat. And we're excited about, alleged doorbell
Alleged.
licker. We
And
don't
these
know
are
that that's
terrible
true.
rumors. Like,
You know.
honestly, I just heard it a couple places. We have absolutely no real evidence that that's the case.
I mean, Jack
He
is
hasn't-
welcome to come on the show and tell us he's not a
Anytime.
doorbell licker. That's a
100%.
standing open invite.
Yes.
for
He
him.
is an individual that did offer you a free Polar Pop. Polar Pop.
Yeah, who was trying to buy votes.
Yeah. You want to talk about voter fraud?
For
Yeah.
the soda, like, oh my god.
Yeah, he was trying to give
God.
away. He had a store giving away free soda if you signed
Yeah.
his petition to get on the ballot. Hilariously, the deadline for those petitions ended weeks ago, so he's breaking election laws for no apparent gain.
What?
Yeah.
So that's Brandy's opponent, and that's just
Yikes.
shameful crap. Brandy, are you you're qualified? You're in. You're
Today, at noon, it starts. So that's why I was doing my laundry.
right on. I saw a message from Dan Andanino that he sent his qualifying paperwork in today.
Yes, hopefully it gets there in time. So because I know states is different because you have to have your check there at a certain time. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they all get there. I know Tammy Garcia is qualified in House District 37, so I'm very excited. We have
Right.
Kathy Lewis running against probably Danny Burgess for the Tom Lee vacated seat. So over also on East Side.
Right.
But over here on the West Side, you know, when we talk about why local elections matter, you know, he went after Ilhan Omar, my opponent. He posted an anti-Muslim racist 9/11 meme.
When was that?
Last year.
Was it last year?
And he posted it and he goes, "We'll never forget." And I'm like, what? Why? Why would you? This is horrible. So grew up in Michigan, right near Dearborn, largest population of individuals of Arab descent outside of the Middle East, Dearborn, Michigan. And when I just sat there just staring at that going, what is going on? Like, what is wrong with you? These are great, amazing people. People are great and amazing if you give them a chance. And had
I
fun
agree.
with them. And I'm sorry, I have a lot of Muslim friends, and I have a family member who's Arab American. And the fact that you would post something like that, because white people, whether you realize it or not, were not the only people who died on September 11th. And the fact that he minimized it and made it sound like September 11th was only all white deaths, I just was so.
Let me also mention
No,
that
that's
nobody,
disgusting.
none of the other members of our county commission condemned him for that post.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Not a single one of them made a statement that said, "Hey, the Republican Party of Pasco did not say Jack should not have posted that." And
Right.
we nope.
See, I've only
So-
been in the area for about 5 years now, so I'm still kind of getting to know like the local politics in the area.
Well, we can help you with that.
Yeah. Obviously, like this is the kind of tea I want. So this
All right.
this is what I need to hear.
Well, Caitlin, thank you for standing up.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
for
for
holding
having me.
space, and best of luck. And you have my
Thank
my unbridled support for what you're
Thank
doing.
you. You guys have my support too. And so
All
do
right.
you, Brandy.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for coffee. We're back on Wednesday at 10 a.m. with another episode. We were trying to get Kelly Smith to join us last week. Maybe we'll get her on Wednesday. Maybe that'd be cool. Brandy, thank you so much for jumping in. We're really glad to
Yes.
see you here on
Of
the
course.
show. Yeah, always a pleasure. So that's gonna do it for us today. Thanks for joining us on #coffee, and please share this. Give us a like and a subscription. Subscribe and share it back to your Facebook page. We would really appreciate it. And that's going to do it for today. Sasquatch is real.